takes power. What happens when she won't back down?
The message is clear. From the gender pay gap, women in leadership, the global backlash against women's rights, and global crises from poverty to conflict to climate disasters, progress continues to be slow for women and girls.
At last year's United Nations General Assembly, less than 12% of speakers were women. Change is long overdue. Meanwhile, new technologies, which have huge potential to reduce inequalities, too often do the opposite because of unequal access, baked-in bias, and online violence. A global backlash against women's rights is threatening and in some cases reversing progress in developing and developed countries alike. The most egregious example is Afghanistan, where women and girls have been barred from much of the education system, from employment outside the home, and from most public spaces. But we need look no further than headlines of recent days. It is intolerable that over 4 million girls around the world are at risk of female genital mutilation each year. And I'm outraged by the parliamentary initiative in Gambia to legalize this horrific practice. I strongly appeal for this proposal to be rejected. Excellencies, and the global crises we face are hitting women and girls hardest, from poverty and hunger to climate disasters, war and terror.
He warned that at the current rate of change, full legal equality for women is some 300 years away. And by 2030, over 340 million women and girls will still live in extreme poverty, about 18 million more than men and boys.
This is an insult to women and girls, and a brake on all our efforts to build a better world. Gender equality is the foundation of the entire 2030 agenda, from ending poverty to securing peace. We must drastically up the pace of change. That requires political focus, and it requires investment, our theme for this year's International Women's Day. Those investments must go towards ending violence against women, improving women's and girls' access to education and skills, and increasing the number of women in leadership roles in the corporate sector, in government, in peace building, and in climate action. We need to provide resources for effective social protection systems and put a monetary value on care work.
He highlighted 3 priority areas: increasing long-term finance for sustainable development, urging governments to prioritize equality for women and girls, and the urgent need to increase the number of women in leadership positions.
Women in positions of power can help to drive investment in policies and programs that meet the needs of women and girls. I'm particularly proud that since early in my tenure, we have equal numbers of women and men in senior management across the entire United Nations system, a first for our organization. And I urge member states to look at what they can do to increase the number of women in delegations to the United Nations and at intergovernmental meetings. Such investments and policies are not in favor of women, they are good for us all.
To echo the call of
With this message on behalf of women and girls caught up in the horrendous conflict in Gaza.
We need a humanitarian ceasefire in Gaza now. More than 9,000 women. More than 9,000 women have been killed in Gaza, and this must stop. We cannot return to a path to peace without justice for all survivors of this conflict. And I say all survivors of this conflict, and without an end to the indiscriminate violence in Gaza.
Next week, the Commission on the Status of Women kicks off at UNHQ under the theme Accelerating the Achievement of Gender Equality and the Empowerment of All Women and Girls by addressing poverty and strengthening institutions and financing with a gender perspective. Sherwin Bryce-Pease, SABC News, New York.